Good evening, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. The Ministry of Sports and Community Development continues to seek ways to provide outreach and build capacity during these COVIDious times. Supervisor II, Ministry of Sports and Community Development, Omari Samuel, he joins us to speak to the TNT Online Community Voices, an initiative that recently began. His line Minister Cudjoe describes this venture as a platform for the ministry to continue to touch, develop, educate, and empower communities as they focus on surviving and overcoming these turbulent times. It is time to go in depth on the TNT Online Community Voices with Omari Samuel. Mr. Samuel, thank you for making the time. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, and thanks for having.
Our pleasure. And we want to get down to brass tacks. What is this Online Community Voices program?
Okay, so I maybe have to put it in some context. Existing in Trinidad, there are 9 district offices, and in these district offices, you would find the Community Development Division and the divisions officers. Prior to prior to COVID, what you would have had is community officers taking to communities specific programs from a lot of government agencies and a lot of large NGOs. It cannot happen during COVID, so what we found is another method of getting the news and getting the views and getting the informed positions of government agencies and large NGOs to communities via what we refer to now as the TT Online Community Voices.
I like the fact that you talk about informed opinions and getting that data to work from, because sometimes it feels as though things can happen by feelings. I think this would be a good idea. I think we should do this. But why do you consider a program like this necessary, though, even though you're getting that information? But what in that information said it's time for us to do something like this?
Okay, so one of the theories of community development is that education is at the cornerstone of our community development. And when you talk about community, you really think about people in the developmental process. So at any point in time, people get from one development stage to another. What you realize is that their development needs and challenges have changed, and therein lies the need for additional information. So the TT Online Community Voices sought to bring up-to-date and relevant information about a number of topical issues which plague or which hinder growth or which hinder development in certain communities.
I like the fact that you speak of people, persons as subject as opposed to object, which sometimes you find can happen in various discourses. But in terms of that education and that information, bringing it to the people is one thing, but having that capacity developed in-house is another. So what was the process of saying, okay, well, we're going to build capacity inside so that we can therefore carry it outside and meet the community the way that we want to in this new manner?
Okay, so COVID really posed a series of challenges. The reality is that nimble organizations have to learn to adapt. That is just the reality. We would have had to put ourselves on a very steep learning curve. We would have had, in a number of instances, to tool ourselves and retool ourselves with up-to-date infrastructure and resources. So the ministry invested, and invested is an important word, invested in the people's development by securing computers and additional support, which would catapult us into being able to roll out these projects that I refer to. So that what we have found is that the staff in the ministry, especially in the Community Development Division, is more rich because we would have had to learn a lot of skills in order to impart to community organizations, individuals, and the online community especially.
I like the fact that you big up this specific part, especially community development. We're richer for the experience. We are speaking with Omari Samuel, Supervisor II at the Ministry of Sports and Community Development. But in terms of moving forward and saying, okay, well, we are going to build this program and roll it out, what was some of the feedback that you would have gotten during these times saying, okay, well, we need a program like this, because we haven't necessarily started to speak about some of these incremental offerings. But what are some of the things that you got saying we need something like this right now?
Okay, so, you know, as I would say that COVID had thrown a very serious challenge. Our staff at the county offices are actually field staff, and they would have had this relationship of interfacing with NGOs in communities. So far communities as Moruga, Guaya, Goyari, and communities along the East-West corridor. So we make no, this community, the reality is that COVID allowed us to retool
and actually move forward in a way that sometimes you may want to do it, but they say, okay, well, we need to take little incremental steps. But when you have a disruption like COVID, you don't have the opportunity. We call it almost like an aggressive push out of the nest, I think.
Yeah. So that happened, but again, as I said, we had to be nimble, and we had to quickly make an assessment of the environment and put the logical steps in place so that work would continue. Because although COVID came, it didn't mean that we had to stop our work. What we had to do is find novel ways of ensuring that this interface with community organizations and the work of the ministry, and by extension the work of the government, was able to continue in a sustained and in an impactful way.
And in terms of that agility that you're speaking to, one of the things I appreciate is the fact that instead of the Best Village competition, there was the Grow It Yourself challenge, where you would have seen, because gardening and self-gardening, according to some people, yardening, if you don't have that big space and you're just operating out of your confined spaces, was trending. And people saying, well, we see the need, we see the importance of being able to put something into the earth and grow what it is, and grow what you eat what you grow. And being able to adapt and change from within the ministry and being able to be at the head of that. But one of those things that we want to talk about, though, is actually some of those things in terms of the program itself, because it would have started on the 14th of October, I believe.
Yes, it rolled out. The first episode was shown on the 14th, but you would realize that because we had these live streams which needed to be filmed, the filming took place a month before, and the rollout took place on the 14th of October. The first episode was shown, actually, it was referred to as investing in your own development, and it was very impactful in terms of, to date, we would have had 7,900 persons looking at that first episode. And I anticipate, in terms of today's activity and the continual encouragement of the district officers to advertise the program, we would also get much more persons than 7,900 persons visiting.
And that is a very good thing. We continue the discussion. When we return, we're speaking with Supervisor II, Omari and Samuel, about the TT Online, and we want to get an idea of some of the other topics to be covered during the live streams, how it is people can get onto the live streams, engage with them, and some of the partners that are involved as well. Stay with us. We return with more. Welcome back to In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. We are having a conversation with Supervisor II, Omari Samuel, about the TT Online Community Voices, and we were just starting to get into the actual topics, because the first one would have happened, over 7,000 viewers on the live stream. But what are some of those topics that we're looking at, Mr. Samuel?
Okay, so in this first episode, I already said we did investing in your own development. The second showing was called So You Want to Start Your Own Business. And interestingly, that was shown on the 21st of October, and we had 5,100 views. We would be looking next at securing social support during trying times, and we would look at the coronavirus, the health implications, and vaccinations. The fifth activity is called Living with Lupus and Understanding Autoimmunity Conditions. And sixth would be Dealing with Death and Picking Up the Pieces. And last, in terms of the first set of episodes, we will treat with dealing with depression and managing mental health, normalizing counseling and psychological support. What we need to understand is these episodes are going to be shown every Thursday from 2 o'clock on the ministry's Facebook page. So we invite the national community as well as the international community, because I looked at the stats this morning and we had some views from as far as South Africa. We had views from Suriname and the rest of the region.
And it is really one thing, and we'll ask you to repeat that once more inside the conversation, but every Thursday from 2 p.m. on the ministry's Facebook page. But how do you decide, okay, well, this is the topic we're going to be tackling on this occasion?
Okay, so what we saw is a logical progression in terms of how we filmed, and there was a bit of wrong robbing at the ministry level, and we decided that the first episode, that this would have been the best fit in terms of how the project should be rolled out.
And you have an ideal target audience that you want to be tuning into these occasions?
Well, yes and no. The information is so rich that it's open and accessible to everyone in Trinidad and Tobago, and of course the diaspora. And all of us would know, if I look at the first episode, Investing in Your Own Development, all of us would either be interested or would have known somebody who would want to invest in their own development, actually, who would not want to invest in their own development. And if you look at the sixth topic, Dealing with Debt and Picking Up the Pieces, all of us would have known, not just COVID, but regular living. The reality of living is that there is debt all around us, and all of us would have known somebody, may have known somebody, and would be able to give this kind of support and solace.
And one of the things I really appreciate about these times is that so much is going virtual, but there is a space so that someone, if you missed it at this time, you weren't able to go, you were at work at 2 o'clock, you're able to go back and say, okay, well, this is a topic that I really want to see what it is they were saying, the subject matter experts, what kind of information they were sharing. So you're able to go back and say, okay, well, let me take it in. And sometimes you may have seen it the first time, but you watch it 3 times, and you may get 3 different things that stand out to you that you can put into your toolkit to go forward with.
And this is important. I remember a couple of years ago doing some research, and what I came across an administrative report which predated independence. It was 1957. So that these episodes of Community Online Voices allows us to build, as it were, the ministry's legacy, so that 20, 25 years from now, some researcher is going to come and say, well, I understand in the development process that this is what ministries were working on in terms of the need for ministries to be more visible online. But so there's a legacy part of it, which researchers will look at 20, 30 years from now. But there's also the immediate need to bring critical, relevant information to the populace.
But that information, yes, is critical, yes, is relevant, but Mr. Samuel, some of them topics, they're heavy, you know. So is all of them going to be that, I guess, serious?
No, not all. Not all would be serious. But I just want to signal that we are dealing and treating with real persons. So in one of the episodes, there was a gentleman, and may God bless his soul, he came forward and he dealt with his own experience with COVID. And the fact that he was in hospital and he saw the suffering, and he was able to advocate the importance of vaccination and the importance of social distancing. It's one thing having a subject matter expert tell you, it's real when somebody experienced and was willing to come and speak about his his experiences during his hospitalization period.
And definitely who feels it knows it, and they're able to tell that story from a manner that is more than just academic or theoretical.
Yes,
And
yes.
so this is what I went through, this is my experience. But I think there's also a game show in terms of No Trinidad and Tobago that is also involved. But a project like this, of this nature, it is very hard for one person, one ministry to do it. Who are some of those stakeholders who are involved helping to make this initiative possible?
Okay, good question. The community development process really is about understanding, one, that resources are not found in one area with one agency, and as a result of that, you need to pull resources and draw resources and network and collaborate with a number of different agencies. So we would have had overtures and assistance from the Ministry of Health, the Self-Help Commission, the T&T Police, a lot of NGOs, the Trinidad and Tobago Psychology Association. So we would have this rich interface and this rich pulling together of resources from subject matter experts from both the NGO community and from the government service. And at this point, I need to plug the fact that we were shown that in the government service that there are officers who are willing to go beyond the call of duty. They were just calling us and say, and they were calling us to say that they were interested and they were willing, and because they all believed that they had something to show, something to share, and it was really impactful, the quality. When you look at the quality, it would tell you. From the very first day, you looked at the quality and you would say that, yes, this is something that I would want to get involved in.
And I'm grateful for that, because many times you hear one side of the story when it comes to the public service. So I'm very happy that you're able to give this testimonial as well. We have about just over 1 minute more, but remind us of the name of the Facebook page, please, the exact thing, and we'll see what other time we have other than that. Okay,
so Facebook, the Facebook page would be Sport, S-P-O-R-T, Community, dev.tt. So let me say that again, Sport, S-P-O-R-T, COMMDEV.TT.
And Thursdays at 2 p.m. And you gave us an idea about who's next on tap?
Who is next?
Yes, please, this Thursday.
We are looking at securing social support during trying times.
And
I could give you an idea of it would be Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, and you will have representative from the National Commission for Self-Help. And they treated with the different ways in which people had to access either state funding, state assistance, or even counseling from relevant agencies.
Very important information, so you do not want to miss that. Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel, for making the time, because I think you told me it just came from a meeting.
Yes, I did.
And we also want to thank you for tuning in to TTT for In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you for joining us.